What if I told you happiness doesn't come from fixing your life, but from fixing how you see it? Most people are trying to change their circumstances, their job, their partner, their income, thinking that once the outside shifts, the inside will follow. But here's the truth. Your nervous system doesn't care how much money you have in the bank if your brain is wired for survival, not peace. And that's the reality for most people, biologically stressed, emotionally numb, and spiritually starving. That's why real happiness, deep, durable happiness, starts by training your mind, not chasing dopamine. And the first habit? Stillness. Not scrolling, not escaping, not distracting, but real, uncomfortable silence. The kind that forces you to hear what your soul has been screaming through the noise. A study from Harvard found that the human mind is lost in thought nearly 47% of the time. That means almost half of your life is being lived inside a mental fog. But here's the twist. People reported being significantly less happy when their mind wandered, regardless of whether the thoughts were positive or negative. The conclusion? Presence is happiness. Not the idea of being mindful, but the brutal discipline of anchoring yourself into the now, when your brain wants to escape to what was or what might happen. Stillness is the space where pain loses its grip, where anxiety has no oxygen. And when practiced consistently, it rewires your baseline mood. No, it won't make your problems disappear, but it'll make you stronger than your problems. And that's where real joy begins. You don't find happiness, you train for it. The second habit? Radical emotional honesty. Not the kind of honesty you give others, the kind you finally give yourself. See, most unhappiness doesn't come from the pain itself, but from the resistance to feeling it, from stuffing it down, from smiling when you want to scream, from saying, "I'm fine," when your soul is shattering inside. But here's what psychology has proven. When emotions are suppressed, the body keeps the score. Cortisol rises, inflammation spikes, sleep is disrupted, and worst of all, your sense of self becomes foggy. You forget who you are because you've been performing for so long. Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Translation? If you don't confront your emotional truth, it will silently shape every decision you make. Your relationships, your habits, your self-worth, all without you realizing. So, how do you practice radical emotional honesty? You sit in the discomfort without judgment. You write down the thoughts that scare you. You ask yourself, what emotion am I avoiding right now? And then you feel it fully, without numbing, without explaining it away, without running. Because here's the magic. What you feel, you can heal. But what you avoid controls you. The happiest people aren't the ones who avoid hard emotions. They're the ones who build the emotional muscle to handle them with clarity and grace. You can't be truly at peace if you're lying to yourself. So drop the performance. Drop the mask. Stop pretending to be positive when you're actually in pain. That's not strength. That's spiritual suffocation. True happiness is built on the foundation of full-spectrum truth, not half-lived comfort. Because the moment you stop lying to yourself is the moment your real life begins. And if you want to be unshakable, you need to know this. You don't need to fix everything right now. You just need to stop abandoning yourself every time it hurts. Let the pain speak. Let the silence hold it. Let the truth set you free. That's habit number 2. And it might just change everything. The third habit? Deliberate solitude, not loneliness. There's a difference. Loneliness is the ache of feeling unwanted. But solitude, that's where the soul recharges. In our hyper-stimulated world, we're drowning in noise. Every scroll, every ping, every conversation is a tug at your attention, and every tug steals a piece of your peace. But studies show something remarkable. People who spend even just 15 minutes a day in intentional silence, no phone, no music, no distractions, report significantly lower cortisol levels, greater emotional resilience, and sharper decision-making. You know why? Because in that silence, the mind finally exhales. It sorts, it processes, it heals. Carl Jung believed the unconscious mind speaks loudest in silence. And the reason so many people feel lost is because they never stop moving long enough to listen. Solitude gives you access to something most people never find: self-originated peace. Not borrowed from a partner, not achieved through success, not bought with dopamine hits, but real peace, the kind that grows from within and needs nothing to stay alive. And here's the truth no one tells you. If you always need something external to feel good, you're not free, you're owned. But if you can sit with yourself, in the quiet, in the stillness, and feel whole, that's power, that's happiness, that's peace. So, take the walk alone. Leave your phone at home. Breathe without input. Let your thoughts be your only company. And here's a secret. In those quiet moments, you'll meet the version of you that's been waiting. The calm one, the wise one, the version of you that doesn't chase, because he knows he doesn't need to. In solitude, you remember who you were before the world told you who to be. You don't need more motivation. You don't need more productivity hacks. You need space, enough space to hear your own voice again. That's habit number 3. And if you've never truly practiced it, prepare to meet yourself for the first time. And trust me, he's been waiting. Now let's talk about something almost no one associates with happiness, but should. Habit number 4, the art of embracing micro-discomfort. See, happiness isn't comfort. Not really. The happiest people are not the ones who avoid struggle, but the ones who grow through it. Psychologically, we're wired to pursue comfort and avoid pain. That's the amygdala's job. But here's the paradox. True, sustainable happiness actually comes from controlled exposure to discomfort. Why? Because discomfort teaches the brain a crucial message. I can survive this. Whether it's cold showers, difficult conversations, disciplined routines, or facing emotional truths. Every time you lean into something uncomfortable, you train your nervous system to stop panicking and start adapting. This is neuroplasticity at work. Every small act of courage reshapes your mental map. You begin to associate stress not with fear, but with growth. You stop avoiding. You start expanding. Here's what the research says. People who regularly engage in small, chosen discomforts, like fasting, physical exertion, or facing fears, have higher dopamine baselines, better emotional regulation, and a stronger sense of purpose. Why? Because they're not waiting for life to be easy. They're building the strength to be bigger than their circumstances. There's a hidden joy in proving to yourself that you can do hard things, that you can delay gratification, that you can choose pain on purpose, not because you hate yourself, but because you're training for something more. And here's the twist. When you voluntarily enter discomfort, you reclaim control. You're not a victim of pressure anymore. You're its master. So maybe the happiest version of you isn't the one who avoids stress. Maybe it's the one who turns toward it, breathes through it, and comes out stronger. This isn't masochism. It's mental freedom. And every time you step outside your comfort zone, even just an inch, your soul remembers that it wasn't born to shrink. It was born to expand. Don't chase ease. Chase growth. Because happiness isn't the absence of pressure. It's the presence of power. Let's move into something deeper now. Something invisible, but absolutely vital. Habit number 5, cultivate emotional hygiene. You brush your teeth every day. You wash your face. You care for your body's hygiene. But when was the last time you cleaned your mind? We live in a world that clutters us emotionally, with fear, with comparison, with shame, with expectations. And most people, they carry emotional residue for years without realizing it's poisoning their peace. Carl Jung called it the shadow, the buried, rejected parts of you that you've pushed down and that now act out in silence. So how do you clean what you can't see? Start by acknowledging that emotions aren't just feelings, they're data. Signals from your unconscious asking to be felt, not fixed. Suppressed emotions don't disappear. They calcify into anxiety, restlessness, anger, and emotional numbness. Here's the practice. 1. Take 5 minutes each day to sit in silence. Not to think, but to feel. Ask yourself, what is unprocessed inside me right now? 2. Learn the language of your body. Tight chest? Clenched jaw? Racing thoughts? These are whispers of emotional clutter. 3. Practice emotional journaling. Write not what happened, but how it made you feel. Let the ink bleed the truth. This isn't self-indulgence. This is self-respect. According to studies in affect labeling and mindfulness-based therapies, the act of naming your emotions actually reduces activity in the amygdala, calming your nervous system and making your mind more resilient. People who practice emotional hygiene regularly report higher life satisfaction, better sleep, stronger relationships, and fewer depressive episodes. Why? Because when you clear the emotional static, you can actually hear yourself again. You stop reacting from your past and start choosing from your present. This is how you protect your peace. not by avoiding emotion, but by metabolizing it. Let it move through you. Let it rise, speak, and pass. Emotion is energy, and when you release what's stuck, you create space for clarity, for calm, for joy. True happiness doesn't come from perfect circumstances. It comes from knowing that inside you, there's nothing festering in silence anymore. You've made peace with your inner world, and that's a freedom few ever find. Let's go even further, into the space where happiness becomes choice, not chance. Habit 6. Create moments of awe, not entertainment, not distraction. Awe. This is not just poetic language. It's a scientifically measurable emotion. Researchers define awe as a complex state that arises when you encounter something vast and mysterious, something that challenges your current understanding of the world. And here's what's wild. Awe actually shrinks your sense of self, not in a bad way, but in a liberating way. Your brain temporarily dissolves the boundaries of your ego, and you feel more connected, more curious, more alive. Studies at UC Berkeley show that experiencing awe boosts life satisfaction, lowers stress, and increases generosity. Why? Because awe reminds you, you are not the center of everything, and that's a relief. So how do you invite awe into an ordinary life? You go where the soul can breathe. Stand beneath a vast night sky. Watch a sunrise in total silence. Read words so true they stop your breath. Listen to a symphony with your eyes closed. Stare into the eyes of someone you love without speaking. Or maybe it's simpler than all of that. Maybe it's watching a child laugh uncontrollably, or seeing a stranger show compassion when no one's watching. Awe doesn't require a plane ticket. It only requires your presence. Because when you're truly present, everything becomes extraordinary. The steam rising from your morning tea, the wind moving through leaves like a whispered language, the pulse in your wrist, a quiet reminder, you are here, alive. Happiness isn't always about solving problems. Sometimes, it's about remembering how miraculous this entire experience is. Awe resets your nervous system. It humbles your ego. It quiets your inner critic. It softens your heart. And in that softness, you find peace. So if you want to be truly happy, don't just chase goals. Chase wonder. Chase the feeling that you are part of something far greater, far more beautiful than your own story. Because you are. And once you remember that, even the darkest day holds light. Now we arrive at the final habit, the one most overlooked, yet the one that quietly determines your entire emotional climate. Habit 7. Rewire your self-talk like your life depends on it, because it does. Every single day, you're in a conversation, not with others, with yourself. And this dialogue, it shapes your identity, fuels your actions, and determines whether your world feels like a battlefield or a sanctuary. Here's what science confirms. According to research in cognitive behavioral therapy, your thoughts are not passive, they're chemical. They shape the pathways in your brain. Negative self-talk activates your amygdala, your fear center. Supportive, empowering inner dialogue. It engages your prefrontal cortex, the seat of calm, clarity, and decision-making. So the words you whisper to yourself in silence, they become your nervous system's reality. Let's make this real. If your inner voice says, "I'm never enough. Nothing ever works out. I always mess it up," you're not just stating an opinion. You're reinforcing a neural truth, one that will dictate your behavior, your emotions, and your very sense of self-worth. But if your inner voice shifts to, "I'm learning. This moment will pass. I have overcome before. I will overcome again," you are physically rewiring your brain for resilience, for calm, for strength. This isn't about fake positivity or delusion. It's about psychological ownership. You become what you repeatedly tell yourself you are. So ask yourself this. Would you speak to a friend the way you speak to yourself? If not, something needs to change. Start small. Every time your mind spirals, interrupt it. Say aloud, "That's not my voice. That's old programming." Replace it. Try, "I'm safe right now." Or, "This is difficult, not permanent." Or even just, "I've survived 100% of my worst days." That's power. You don't need to believe it at first. Neural pathways form through repetition, not belief. Your brain listens. Make sure your words are worth listening to. In the end, happiness isn't found in what happens to you. It's found in how you explain life to yourself when no one's listening. So start now. Rebuild the voice in your head until it becomes your greatest ally. Until it says, "You are worthy. You are healing. and no storm can unmake who you are. And now we return, not to the chaos of the world, but to the quiet within. You see, happiness isn't some loud, explosive celebration. It's not the highlight reel. It's not found at the top of the mountain or on the cover of Success. It's the subtle exhale after a long breath, the calm smile after understanding your pain, the unshakable trust in yourself when life stops making sense. Because when you adopt these habits, not as rules, but as reminders, you're not just chasing happiness. You're building emotional armor. You're creating a nervous system that doesn't flinch at chaos. You're becoming the eye of the storm, calm, steady, unbothered. The world will still be loud. Problems won't disappear, but you will meet them differently. You'll wake up without panic. You'll stop needing everyone to understand you. You'll no longer feel hijacked by every emotion, every fear, every what if. And best of all, you'll stop waiting for happiness to arrive like a delayed guest. Because you'll realize it's always been inside. Every time you slow your breath, every time you choose presence over panic, every time you meet your own darkness with gentleness instead of judgment. That's happiness. That's peace. That's the life no one can give you and no one can take away. So, if you remember nothing else, remember this. You are not here to survive. You are here to live. Fully, deeply, calmly, powerfully. And happiness isn't found in what happens to you. It's forged in how you rise, how you think, and how you love yourself back to wholeness. The man who knows his worth doesn't chase, he chooses.